Maybe you should skip Christmas this year, my mom said, real gentle, like she was breaking the news that our barbecue got rained out. My brother chimed in with a laugh, like it was no big deal. We'll just pretend you're not around. I didn't argue. What was the point? Funny enough, things started falling apart without me anyway. At the family party, his girlfriend took one look at a photo of me on the wall and dumped him right there on the spot. Recognized me immediately. Small world. T. Gloria is, I'd actually been kind of excited for Christmas this time. Not in a countdown every day, Hallmark movie kind of way. But real enough. I'd cleared my whole schedule. Made time. Picked up all the groceries for that rosemary stuffing everyone raves about, even though year after year, they somehow forget I'm the one who makes it. I even bought presents for every single person, including my brother, the same guy who once called gift cards lazy and then turned around and gave me 3 Christmases in a row. I treated myself too. Bought a new sweater, deep forest green. Nothing flashy. Just soft, simple. Something that said, yeah, I made an effort without screaming for attention. Bag was packed, sitting right there by the door. I was ready. So when my phone buzzed 3 days before Christmas and my brother's name lit up, I figured he was calling about carpool plans or to ask me to grab napkins or soda or something. Normal stuff. I wish. He started off real casual, the way he always does when he's about to drop something sharp and wants credit for sounding nice. Hey, he said, like it was no big deal. Listen, Sierra's coming for Christmas. Sierra. Right. The new girlfriend. Some photographer, ceramic artist, creative type living in Soho, or at least that's the vibe. I'd only seen one picture of her. Even in that, she looked like she was standing in some heavenly glow the rest of us missed. She's really sensitive to energy, he said. You know, like how a room feels. It's a big deal for her. I stayed quiet. And your job, he went on, dragging it out, it can be heavy. There it was. Heavy. Not you're a doctor who actually helps people, not you sit with the folks no one else wants to deal with. Just heavy. In his mind, I'm the downer ruining the perfect Instagram version of his life. He kept going. I just think for her sake, maybe it's better if you sit this one out. Nothing personal. Which, we all know, is what people say right before they hit you square in the gut. I don't even remember what I said. Probably just, okay. Everything kind of blurred out after that. Like the sound got sucked out of the room. An hour later, like clockwork, my mom called. Honey, she said, in that fake sweet voice she uses when she's about to do something mean but wants you to think she's being kind. We're just trying to keep things simple this year. Sierra's very sensitive. And Gregor, he's really trying with this one. This one. Like Sierra was some fragile rescue dog they were desperate to house train. If you came, she added, pausing just long enough to twist the knife, it might confuse things. Confuse who, exactly? She even said, honestly, if you showed up, we might not answer the door. Just to keep everything comfortable. Right. Because God forbid I throw off the vibe for the people who didn't even want me there. I didn't yell. Didn't ask how they could do this. Just said, okay, and hung up. After that, I sat there staring at the blinking cursor on my laptop until I finally closed it and pulled up my banking app. Mortgage payment? Cancelled. Car loan top-up? Forget it. The emergency home repair fund? Frozen. That plumbing fix I paid for last fall? Not my problem anymore. The new battery I bought for their car last spring? Hope it holds out when the weather turns. Here's the thing. When you're the one quietly keeping everything running, nobody notices until you stop. And now? I'd officially stopped being useful. I didn't make a dramatic Facebook post. Didn't fire off a rage text. Didn't even say a word. I just unplugged the Christmas tree in my apartment, tucked the wrapped gifts back into the closet, and went to bed early. Spent Christmas Eve alone. Silent night, indeed. I thought that was going to be the low point. But then the phone rang. It was the day after Christmas. Late morning. I was curled up on the couch in leggings and a baggy hoodie, chewing on cold toast, trying to convince myself I didn't care. My mom's name popped up. I let it ring out. She called again. And again. Then came the text. Can you answer? You've done enough damage already. My stomach dropped like a rock. A few minutes later, Aunt Monica, the only one who still remembers when my birthday is, gave me a call. This time, I answered. She spoke low, like she was still trying to piece things together. What happened yesterday? She asked. They're saying you ruined Christmas. But you weren't even there. I just stared at the wall. I ruined it? Something happened with Sierra, she said. There was yelling. She left early. Your name came up. That's all I know. No real answers. Just enough to set my brain racing. What did Sierra see? What did she hear? How, exactly, was I the villain this time? I glanced down at my half-eaten piece of toast. And for the first time since I folded that green sweater away, I actually smiled. It's funny, isn't it? The way family stories always turn into fairy tales as long as someone else is telling them. Ask anyone in my family and they'll tell you. Gregor is the golden boy. Talented. Sensitive. Special. The miracle baby they prayed for and finally got. Me? I was the first try. The dry run. The quiet one who read too much and never smiled quite enough. Gregor could do no wrong. When he scribbled all over the living room walls at 6 years old. Such a creative spirit. When I dropped a bowl trying to set the dinner table. You need to be more careful. When Gregor brought home a participation ribbon from some random school event, my parents acted like he'd won a Nobel Prize. Stuck it front and center on the fridge, where it stayed for a whole week. When I came home with straight A's, they barely glanced at my report card before sliding it into a drawer like it was junk mail. One time, I left my college acceptance letter right there on the kitchen table, hoping anybody would notice. They didn't even ask about it. They always had a way of talking about Gregor like he was some kind of rare gem. He had that artistic spark, they said. He felt things deeper than the rest of us. Meanwhile, I once found my sketchbook shoved under a pile of old coupons in the recycling bin. When I asked about it, they just shrugged and said they thought it was scrap paper. I got into med school straight out of college. No breaks, no second chances. I walked into the dining room holding my acceptance letter, heart pounding, waiting for some kind of reaction. My mom skimmed it, gave a tight smile, and said, "That's a lot. Just be careful you don't work yourself into the ground." That was the whole conversation. Gregor, meanwhile, switched majors like he was flipping channels, business, then communications, then art history, before dropping out altogether junior year. Told everyone he needed to follow his passion. They turned my old bedroom into his art studio before he'd even unpacked. They threw him a party that year. A whole party, balloons, speeches, music, to celebrate him finding himself. I didn't even get an invite. There's a framed picture of him in their hallway. Gregor, 23, beaming with a paintbrush in his hand like he just saved the planet. Once, I overheard my mom bragging to the neighbors that he was born to lead with vision. That same week, a medical journal published my research paper on early intervention for memory loss. Nobody said a word. Growing up, they liked to joke that I was too serious. "You're always working," they'd say, like it was a bad habit I couldn't break. But not once did anyone ever ask me what I was working so hard for. So yeah, when Christmas rolled around and Sierra floated into their lives, all smiles and soft lighting, like she wandered off the set of a holiday commercial, I wasn't surprised they bent over backward to keep the illusion alive. And it didn't exactly shock me when I found out what they were saying about me behind my back, either. Aunt Monica broke it to me gently, like someone handling a fragile thing they knew was already cracked. They said I was difficult, that I didn't know how to connect with people, that I buried myself in hospitals and grave conversations, that I was cold, clinical, too wrapped up in death and disease to be any fun. Apparently, my brother even joked that I was like the Grim Reaper showing up at family functions. Someone else laughed and said I probably carried syringes in my purse just in case. They passed around the wine and kept the jokes rolling like it was game night. Someone quipped that if I had shown up to the party, I'd have turned it into a wake. And then Sierra saw my picture. Aunt Monica didn't have a full play-by-play, but she told me what mattered. The room went still. Sierra's face went pale. She put her drink down, pointed at the photo, and asked, real quiet, "Is this the sister you told me about?" They didn't really explain what happened next, but they didn't have to. I could see it all playing out in my head. For once, someone saw through it. Through all the fake smiles, and we're just a happy family theater. And just like that, the house of cards collapsed. That's how I ruined Christmas. By being nothing more than a memory hanging on the wall. 3 days later, I got a voicemail. Not from my mom. Not from Gregor. Not even from my dad, who only ever calls when he's locked out of his email. It was from Sierra. Her voice sounded nothing like the polished, bright Instagram stories they'd sent me weeks before. She sounded smaller. Real. "Hi," she said, her voice catching a little. "I hope it's okay I got your number from your aunt. I needed to say something." She paused. You could hear her breathing. Could hear how much it took her to call. "I didn't know who you were," she said. "Not really. But when I saw your picture, I remembered. You treated my grandmother, Gloria, years ago." Another pause, longer this time. "She still talks about you," Sierra said. "She says you were the one who stayed. You were the one who didn't give up on her." Her voice cracked a little, and she steadied herself. "I'm sorry for what they said. I didn't know. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine." She didn't ask for anything. She didn't try to explain it away or make herself the hero. She just saw me and let me know she did. I listened to her voicemail twice, then again, and again. And I'll be honest, I sat right there in my kitchen, knees pulled up to my chest, crying into a dish towel that still smelled like rosemary and cheap bleach. Not because I was broken, but because, for the first time in what felt like forever, someone saw me without being told who I was supposed to be. Sierra didn't want anything. She didn't ask for forgiveness or friendship. She just gave me something I hadn't gotten from my own family my whole life. She saw the real me, and it mattered. But of course, nothing good lasts long around here. 2 days later, my mom called. I stared at the screen for a good minute. Almost let it ring out. Should've. She didn't even say hello. She just started in, voice sharp and already halfway through blaming me for everything. "I don't know what you said to her," she barked, "but now your brother's a mess. She blocked his number. She won't talk to him. And now she's putting things online about being mistreated by our family." I could hear the clink of a wine glass in the background. Classic. "And she tagged your photo," my mom added, like I'd committed some unforgivable crime. I said nothing, just let her keep going. Eventually, she got to the real reason for the call. "You need to reach out," she said. "Fix it. Tell her it was all a misunderstanding. That none of it was personal." So now I was supposed to be the family's emergency PR team. Their crisis hotline. Funny, considering they couldn't even be bothered to leave the porch light on for me a few days ago. "She's ruining your brother's future," my mom hissed into the phone, like she was spilling national secrets. "His reputation's getting trashed in those artsy New York circles she runs in. He's basically blacklisted." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the irony was just too damn much. They spent years pretending I wasn't there. Now that their little fantasy was cracking, suddenly my absence had real consequences. I didn't argue. Didn't ask her if she even heard how ridiculous she sounded. I just said, "I'll think about it." I didn't. Instead, I sat on the couch and pulled up Sierra's post. It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even vengeful. It was just honest. She wrote about a woman who saved her grandmother's life. About walking into a house expecting warmth and walking right into a cold front instead. A place where kindness was treated like a joke. She didn't name me, she didn't have to. They'd spent years painting me as this cold, clinical ghost, too serious to love. But Sierra's words cut through the noise like a knife. Toward the end, she wrote, "Some people wrap cruelty in polite smiles and pretty lights. But the moment I saw that photo, I remembered what real kindness feels like. And it sure wasn't sitting at that table." It caught fire. Likes, comments, shares. A flood of people standing up for someone they didn't even know, but somehow recognized anyway. For the first time, the world didn't call me difficult. Didn't say I was heavy to be around. They said I mattered. That night, my dad sent me a text. 5 words. "You need to fix this." As if I was the one who broke anything. I left him on read. The next morning, my phone buzzed again. Gregor this time. I almost let it ring out. But something in me wanted to hear him squirm. I picked up. His voice was rough, like he hadn't slept. "I didn't know she knew you," he said, like he was accusing me of hiding a weapon. "You told me not to come," I said, dead flat. I was just trying to protect the vibe. "The vibe," I repeated, like the words tasted rotten in my mouth. He sighed. "You know what I mean." "No, Gregor. I really don't." There was a long pause, then he said it. "She's serious. It's over. She said the way we talked about you made her physically sick." I didn't say anything. "She blocked me," he went on, voice breaking a little. "Now everyone's piling on. Calling me toxic. Like I'm the bad guy." I stared out the window, watching snow slip off a tree branch. "Imagine that," I said, dry as dust. Then, because he couldn't help himself, he tried the guilt move. "I always thought you were okay," he said. "You didn't seem like you needed anything from us. I figured maybe you didn't want to be around." I didn't even blink. "You didn't want to know," I said quietly. There was a hollow silence on his end. Finally. "So, you're not gonna help?" I actually smiled. Not big, not cruel, just small and real. "I think the Tea Gloria helped just fine." Click. Call ended. And weirdly, there was no satisfaction. No fist-pumping moment. Just a slow, steady calm washing over me. Like I'd finally stopped trying to tread water for people who never learned how to swim. Later that afternoon, Aunt Monica called. "Sierra asked for your address," she said. "Wants to send you something." I hesitated, then gave it to her. 3 days later, a letter showed up in my mailbox. An actual letter. Heavy paper, real ink. Some of the words were smudged, like maybe her hands shook while she was writing. Inside, Sierra told me her grandmother was still thriving. Still doing yoga twice a week. Still making her Sunday market trips on foot. Still telling everyone who'd listen about the doctor who sat at her bedside and said, "You're not done yet." Sierra thanked me. Not for fixing what was broken. Not for saving face. But for showing her what real strength, real compassion looks like. I framed that letter. Hung it above my desk, right where I sit to write end-of-day patient notes. And one evening, as I typed away, I realized something. For the first time in forever, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. Not my family. Not my past. Not even myself. I hadn't stayed by Gloria's side for attention. I hadn't turned off the Christmas lights in my apartment to prove a point. And I sure as hell hadn't ruined Christmas to teach anyone a lesson. I just did what was right. And the Tea Gloria, well, it finally showed up. Exactly when it needed to. Families are supposed to band together when things fall apart. Mine? They huddled together to send a group email. It landed 3 days after Sierra's letter. Subject line, "Let's reset things." It was signed neatly by Mom, Dad, and Gregor. A real team effort. Like they thought if they added enough names, it might actually sound sincere. The email was pure artful dodging. Not one single sorry in the whole thing. Just vague phrases about emotions running high and misunderstandings. Which, in my family's dialect, basically means, "We're still right. We're just mad you noticed." They said the Christmas situation got out of hand. Suggested we hit reset. Have a family brunch. Neutral ground. Warm smiles. Even warmer gaslighting. And right there, sandwiched awkwardly between bagel suggestions and brunch times, they slipped in the real ask. Could I maybe, possibly, reach out to Sierra? Ask her to take down the post? Not because they cared about me. Because they wanted to save face. I didn't answer. Not a word. Not a thumbs up. Not even a meme. Just pure, heavy, beautiful silence. I waited. Because if there's one thing my family's never learned, it's how to sit still when the cracks start showing. And sure enough, they broke first. It started with a whisper campaign. My dad, in all his quiet desperation, reached out to a hospital colleague of mine. Someone he barely knew, some guy he'd clinked glasses with once at a charity gala. He tried to float the idea, casual-like, that maybe I wasn't doing so well. That maybe someone should keep an eye on me. You know, for my own good. Because his golden boy couldn't handle the Tea Gloria. Luckily, that colleague wasn't an idiot. They called me straight away, horrified, apologetic, made it clear nothing would come of it. And that bridge? I didn't just cross it. I burned it so hot there wasn't even ash left. Then came the group text. Extended family. Cousins, great-aunts, anyone with the last name. A polished-up version of the story, where I was somehow the villain. No mention of being cut out. No mention of the mockery. Just vague, hand-wringing nonsense about how I was tearing the family apart, and how concerned they all were about my mental health. And for a second, it almost worked. I got a pity text from a cousin I hadn't spoken to since Y2K was a real fear. One even sent me a coupon for a yoga retreat, in case you're going through a rough patch. Right. Because downward dog fixes betrayal. When the smear campaign didn't stick, they played their last card. A surprise visit. Sunday afternoon. I was sipping coffee, watching the snow fall sideways, when I heard the knock. I checked the peephole. And there they were. Mom, Dad, Gregor. Standing in a neat little line, like a sad greeting card. I opened the door, leaned on the frame. We just want to talk, my mom said, her voice dripping fake concern. I let them in. Not because I was feeling generous, but because I wanted to see what kind of play they thought they still had left. They perched on the couch like it was a hostage negotiation. Dad led the charge. We raised you. We sacrificed for you. You owe us. The classics. Dust them off and drag them out. Mom piled on with a quiver in her voice. Yes, we've made mistakes. But you've punished us enough. It's time to move on. And then Gregor, poor, exhausted Gregor, tried to sound reasonable. She'll listen to you. You're the only one who can fix this. I let the silence hang heavy, then turned, walked over to my desk, and opened a drawer. Pulled out the receipts. Literal ones. All the quiet ways I kept them afloat without ever demanding a thing in return. Mortgage payments. Car repairs. Emergency dental surgery, $3,000 wired at 2 a.m. without a second thought. I spread the papers out on the coffee table like evidence. You want to talk about debts? I said, voice steady. Because I can run the numbers if you want. Add interest too. Dad's face darkened. That's not what this is about. Of course it's not, I said, almost laughing. Because when I give, it's just expected. But when I stop, suddenly I'm cruel. Mom blinked fast, trying to summon tears that weren't coming. But we're family. And you made it very clear where I stood, I said. Outside the door. Outside the jokes. Outside the picture you tried to paint. Gregor stood up, squaring his shoulders like he was about to deliver the final blow. She's still in love with me, he said, voice all hurt pride. That's what this is really about. She can't let go. I stared at him for a beat. Then I tilted my head and said, you honestly believe she left because she wanted you too much? Not because she realized she was sitting at a table full of people who laughed about the woman who saved her grandmother's life. The words hit like a rock to the chest. Gregor sat back down, slow. Finally starting to realize the applause wasn't coming. I looked at each of them, my mom, my dad, my brother, and said, I'm not asking for anything. But I'm not offering anything either. not forgiveness, not a cover-up, and sure as hell not my silence. They left without another word. That was 2 months ago. Since then, I've heard the fallout secondhand. Mostly from Sharon, the reluctant family postwoman who still has a working spine. Gregor? Crashed on a friend's couch. His freelance gigs dried up. Turns out, once the golden glow wears off, there's not much left underneath. My parents? Sold the house. Without me quietly patching the holes, the whole place crumbled. Now they're renting some small place with no guest rooms, no space for big holiday performances. I didn't do that. They did. They built a house on favoritism and denial. And when it collapsed, they looked around for someone to blame. But this time, I wasn't there to hand them a mop. And that more than anything Sierra wrote, more than anything I said, that's what broke them. A few days ago, I found a small package sitting on my desk. No note, no card, just a box of chocolates with a little sun doodled on a sticky note. I didn't need a name. I knew who it was from. And for the first time in a long, long time, I let myself feel it. Not vengeance. Not pride. Just peace. The kind you don't win by fighting. The kind you earn by walking away and meaning it. I don't know if they'll ever apologize. I don't need them to. Because the life I've built, the one they never understood, the one they'll never reach. It's mine now. Built with my own 2 hands. Not because I slammed the door on them, but because they never even knew how to knock. It's been a year now. Their numbers? Blocked. Their emails? Deleted. The old family group chat I was never really part of? I walked away without a sound. Not out of spite. Not to make some big dramatic statement. Just for peace. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is draw a line so deep they can't cross it, even if they tried. It didn't happen all at once. There wasn't a single moment where I stood up and said enough. But once I saw it for what it was, I couldn't pretend anymore. And I never looked back. Have you ever had to let go of someone you loved? Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself? Tell me in the comments. I'm here. And if this story hits somewhere deep, go ahead and subscribe. There's more where that came from.